It's one of their biggest events every year, great fundraiser for the St. Felix Center for the love of lobster, and it just happened. So here to recap that amazing event and talk about all the other great services that they have to offer at St. Felix Center, we have Brian Harris, Director of Operations, and Manager of Communications at St. Felix Center is Enrique Cochegrus. So good to have both of you here today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Did you manage to get all the butter out of your clothing and off your face for the love of lobster?
Yeah, it was an amazing event. We had a great time. As always, we got a lot of people turning to the event, and we had different activities, and the food was delicious. So yes, it was a total success.
Is it just lobster, or do you serve other things too?
We'll accommodate for some people that might not like lobster, right? And
Who doesn't like lobster?
But, well, there's always somebody. But no, it was great. So we always try to find something for everybody.
And the music, there's so much fun. It's a wonderful way to raise awareness and money for St. Felix Center, right? Tell me a little bit, Brian, about St. Felix Center and the great work you do there.
Sure. St. Felix Center has been in operation for several decades. The Felician sisters are who actually started the St. Felix Center, and that was back in the late 1930s. They purchased the building that is on our property now, and it was a convent for a long time. And they originally started just by handing out sandwiches out of the back door for people in the neighborhood who were low income and struggling. And over time, it evolved into different things. It was a real focus on babysitting for a long time and childcare during the war years, especially. And then as time went on through the 70s, 80s, 90s, unfortunately, the need of the community kept growing, and the number of people experiencing poverty and other challenges related to poverty kept increasing. And so in the late 90s, they built the actual community center building behind the convent, where St. Felix Center is located to this day. And they've been operating as a sort of community center. We call it a drop-in, so it's just an open, safe space for people in the community who maybe don't have another place to go or are lacking some of those social connections.
It's a lifeline, isn't it? Because without a connection, what would happen to someone who is in a homeless situation?
Well, it can be very easy for them to sort of fall through the cracks and really stay in that situation, right? But by coming to St. Felix Center, they're able to get connected to us and our staff, and that can look like a lot of different things. It can be strictly a social connection. People come in to avoid social isolation and be a part of a community and to feel as though, hopefully they feel as though that there are people that genuinely care about what's happening to them and their situations, and can help steer them and offer them suggestions towards, this particular resource or that particular resource to help to bring them out of that situation that they're in.
And I can imagine someone in that situation probably never pictured themselves there. How does it happen? How does someone slide into that kind of despair and homelessness?
Well, it can happen a lot of different ways. People, I think, are really unaware of how easily it can happen, and a lot of people believe that it can't ever happen to them. Certainly before I got into this line of work, I never dreamed that it could, I came from a middle-class background and could never dream that it could happen. But now, after meeting so many people and hearing so many different stories, you realize how precarious that we all are, really, in the grand scheme of things. And there can be a sort of commonality around some sort of a trauma in their life, either in their early lives or it can happen later in life. But typically there's some kind of a major event or something that happens to a person, and if they don't have a really strong support network in place, it's very hard for them to bounce back from that, and it can very easily snowball. An example we hear a lot of is, I had this job and then I lost the job and I couldn't find another one. 6 months later, my savings ran out, then I lost my house, then I was renting, but then I couldn't pay for that either. And then I had to go on social assistance, and then I found myself in a shelter. And it happens more frequently than people think, and especially now in our sort of very unstable financial climate we find ourselves in.
Enrique, do you see people climbing back out of that?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I obviously love about being part of St. Felix Center is that I think that we really make a difference in so many ways. I don't know if we help every single one that crosses the door, right, in the way that we would like to, but I've definitely seen a lot of cases where we help them to find housing or just the resources they need to improve their lives, and I think that's what we're really aiming for, right? Just make a difference and change lives. And I think St. Felix Center has a very special way to do things, and the way that we treat our guests, we don't call them clients, as an example. We don't call them participants. We try to call them guests, because that's exactly what they are, right?
Everyone deserves
they're in the same level. We consider the same level that we are. And one of the things that I learned, right, over the time that I've been part of St. Felix Center is that there's so many misconceptions about people that are experiencing homelessness. I don't know, it's just you sit down with them and you can have amazing conversations. You will find that a lot of them have very well-educated backgrounds. And so I think it's a two-way street. We learn a lot from them as well, right? So it's not just about helping them or connecting them with other supports they might need, but also I think we get a lot from them too.
You agree, obviously.
Yeah, one of the sort of core programs that we run is a transitional home for women, and so that's actually situated in the former convent. The nuns bequeathed the convent to the center, moved out, and left it for this transitional home for women. And so, these women come to us typically from the shelter system, and just have such a wide array of backgrounds and experiences. And our sort of task at that point is to really try to help them to remember that they have all this capacity that they're able to share with us, and that they have
remember
value.
who they are.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's key.
Yeah.
Some of these people are trying to support pets as well. What do you do in those situations?
Well, so our entire facility is pet friendly. People can bring their animals in with them at any time of the day and have them with them. We've got some connections with different, like the Humane Society, for example, will donate us pet food, and we get lots of donations in from people for leashes and collars and pet toys and all that kind of stuff. And so we're able to offer those to people as well.
Brilliant. For the Love of Lobster has happened, so no more lobster for this year, but next year, of course, get your tickets in advance so that you can be part of it. Are there other ways that we can support the great work of St. Felix Center?
Absolutely. People, again, looking at misconceptions, often feel that it has to be some big grand demonstration to be able to support what we're doing. But really, every little contribution helps, especially volunteerism. A lot of what we do with volunteers. We offer free clothing and free meals and access to very basic essential services that people need. And a lot of that is done with the help of volunteers. And so, a couple of hours a week of someone to donate their time has a huge impact on hundreds of other people in the wider community. And beyond that, obviously donations of non-perishable food items, clothing. It's springtime. I know a lot of people are cleaning out their closets and thinking, what do I do with these old pants that I don't fit into anymore, or that kind of thing. We will gladly accept any kind of item like that. Toiletries. And there's nothing too small, really, because every little thing will help us at some point.
And then your guests
monetary donations as well, obviously.
and monetary donations.
So they can go online, right, at our website, stfelixcenter.ca. We have a space there that you can donate online if you want to. Another way that they can help, or just at least know what's happening in the center, to know what we need at that particular moment, because needs change all the time, obviously, depending on the season, depending on kind of projects that we're trying to push at that moment. So they can follow us also, right, on different social medias, and we try to post as much as we can what the needs are for that particular moment. If people feel that they can, approach to us and say, we want to help, yes, all the time, for sure.
So the first step in helping you help those who need the help is to go online?
Well, that will be a great way for them to get familiar with the center and what some of the things that we do. And of course, get information as well about what the whole situation is about around the people that we try to work with.
Do you have any other programs you'd like to highlight while you're here today?
Yeah, one that just wrapped up recently is our seasonal cold weather program. So it's a very big program that we run each year in partnership with the City of Toronto. And basically from the middle of December till about the middle of March, we open our doors 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for those people who are the most vulnerable in our community, who for a variety of different reasons are not able to access traditional shelter services. And so these are people who really have no other option at this point in time.
And they're outside when it's minus 17 or, I mean, we've had temperatures of minus 40 in the past. They actually have to live through that.
Yeah, and they typically are the ones who struggle the most with mental illness and addictions issues, and those are certainly areas that we're trying to work a lot through our social media platforms to really educate people about, to get people to understand that, again, just dealing with those misconceptions about how and why a person might end up in a situation where they are homeless. You know, it can be very complicated, and to really take the time to understand about the types of mental illness that can impact a person and how debilitating an addiction can be for a person, and to still see them as that person, not as their addiction or their mental illness, is really important for us. And so through this very high profile cold weather program, we've been able to really start some conversations about, you know, the terminology that we use and how we think about mental illness and addictions in the context of homelessness.
Thank you both so much for being here today, for highlighting all the terrific programs going on at St. Felix Center, and thank you for the tremendous work that you're doing. There is value and goodness in every person, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to have us here. Thank you.
Pleasure was ours. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks.